Hi, Chris Lee here. I'm going to be talking about suspension data that I put out there about a year and a half ago, and the data that was just released last year from John Jay, which was also about suspension data. We're going to look at this now. Okay, so first we're going to start where I started at Urban Assembly School for Wildlife. I was there as a teacher, and the years of suspension that came out, the reports is as follows. From 2010 to 11, we had 71 suspensions, and then 4 years after that was six suspensions each year. For 6 suspensions each year to occur, we had to have a probability of 1.1% to occur for 4 years in a row. That is about 0.000000146% to occur. With odds like that, you definitely have to play the lotto. So, when I was at this school, we had a lot more fights, a lot of situations that called for suspensions, and we were being told that the students were being suspended. When the murder of Matthew McCree happened, I looked back at this and I looked at the numbers and said the numbers don't make sense. Maybe it was just our school. But then when I started to report this after his death, which was in September 27th, around October 7th or 8th, individuals were talking to me about my data, and they never got back to me. At the end of the month, October 31st, there was an increase in District 12 data suspension rate. It went up 22.4%. Wow. So every year prior to that, it was about a change of -2, +1, and then this year a huge spike. The huge spike attests to me and the data that I was pointing out to. I learned that they were cooking the books, but I didn't know how much of the books was cooked. I thought it was just at this school. So when that happened, I took a closer look at the data points. All the data comes from this site, the New York City stateeducation.gov site. You can pull up this data yourself to double check the numbers. Okay. I looked at 2 data sets. The first data set that I looked at was just the consecutive numbers, 6666. At this school, I knew as a fact that we had more than 6 suspensions each year. I knew we had more than 6 fights. We had more than 20 fights in a year. Easy. So first I looked at that. And I made a hypothesis. If my school is hiding suspension numbers, and I could see this trend here with these numbers at my school, if I'm correct that they're cooking the books, then I should be able to find this trend in all the other schools or in other schools. Then I started looking again at the data site on here, and I found that trend in another school. For example, here, 4 students were suspended, 2%. The next year, 4, 2%. So the numbers were the same consecutively. Here's another school, Mott Hall 5, right? Same thing, 11 students, 2%. The next year, 11 students, 2%. Here, Wings Academy. Here's a school that's known for suspensions. They have 33 suspensions, 6%. I'm sorry. Each year. See, in 2013, and then again at 2013 and 2014. So I said, look, I noticed the trend that was just District 12. Those were District 12 schools. All the District 12 schools had similar numbers. There was no change from year to year. And if there was, the numbers were very slow. So then I pulled up just the total of each district. And when I pulled up the total of each district, about exactly 85 to 90% of the districts exhibit the same exact numbers. So how are you going to, how? That's like, how do you go from 1 year, you hit it on the nose with 6, and then the next year you hit it on the nose with 6? Crazy. We're not done yet. Let me fix the camera, sorry. So then I compiled the data and I layered it over each other. There was only in 3 data points that the data did not match. It was just off by a digit. But not only did I notice that, there was another trend emerged. The percentage of suspensions to the total of student population in the school and in the district. The trend that was emerging was the numbers were always in a range between 1 to 3%. Most of the time it was 1%. So it looks like that the New York City DOE was trying to produce the variables to always output this type of number. They wanted to get all the suspensions under 3%. No district has over a 3% suspension rate. You won't find 4 or 5. Okay? We have 32 districts. 21 of the districts had 1% of suspensions, total suspensions, equal to its enrollment. 5% of the five of the districts had a range from 1 to 3%, and 4 of the districts had a range from 1 to 2. The New York City DOE trend suggests that the ceiling of suspensions a district must have is no greater than 3%, and they had the intent to keeping it below 3% every year since 2011. The second data trend that's very important, now this goes into how the John Jay research, is this red arrow, where we go from 71 to 6. Throughout the whole entire New York City DOE, from 2011 to 2012, there was close to an 80% sharp decline. I pointed this out in the first week of October to a lot of individuals in the DOE and to reporters. No one paid any heed to what I was saying or how they were cooking the books. So maybe now I'm going to connect it to the John Jay data, and you're going to see a picture starting to emerge. Okay, you're going to see everything clearly. So here is when I compiled it. I only had the data set up to 2016, and you see this trend line. You see this sharp decline. Just look at the image. Now you see here. This is taken from page 27 of the John Jay research paper. They never, throughout the paper, all 67 pages, they never addressed the trend. They only talk about how there was a sharp decline. They don't explain why. I will explain why. I will also explain why we see the plateau. Well, I already explained why we see the plateau. We see the plateau because those 2 years, the numbers was exactly the same throughout the whole DOE. Here and here. Let's move on. Here's the diagram again. You see on the left and then you see on the right the same trend. They're talking about 80%. I pointed that out. Now, let's see in race. As you see, during these years, an all race from white, black, Hispanic, Asian was a decline. The decline was seen everywhere. Their conclusion is, however, according to our analysis from the data from the Department of Education, the reductions varied from grade to race, etc. As we see that I'm pointing out, the trend is the same. Let's move on. Questions still remain about what drove the data down. Was it policy change? Was it teacher interaction? Was it behaviors? They don't give you any answer what it was. I'm going to get into that right now. As I pointed out last December 20th, data manipulation, I go on to talk about how, first, in the school, how they keep these numbers down inside the school. How they manipulate the data. Whenever an incident occurs, right on the top, the teacher reports it to the administrator. And the administrator, these are the 3 things under the umbrella of the administrator: the dean, the assistant principal, and the principal. At any point, that report will stop there and it's handled in-house. They will tell the student, you're suspended, go home, and they won't write anything in the books. They won't report it to ORS. Now, if the incident is really severe, like one incident that I had to help report was a student punching a pregnant teacher in the belly. Because that is so severe, and everyone that witnessed it, they can't deny it. They have to put it through ORS. So then, when they report it through ORS, it gets reported through the district, and then to the city, and then to the state. So now you can see that data. But if it was a student punching another student, depending on the incident, they won't report it. Don't take my word for it. I'll give you more proof in the next slide. After the murder of Matthew McCree, this report was released on October 13th, 2017. The state comptroller said that schools are failing to report incidents and bullying incidents. They don't fail to report, they're just not reporting. In his report, he states that they don't know how to report it. We know how to report it. The teachers are trained to report it. The administrators are trained to report it. This is one of the papers that leave from the school to the superintendent. So this is the second area of data where it gets manipulated at. If the report goes out, it's not handled in-house, and they have to send it to the superintendent. They mark it here. They report it to the superintendent. Now look, you see where it's circled in red? Do not send this paper form to the SED, the State Education Department. Once it's sent there, everything is finalized. They send this paper straight to the superintendent with all the numbers. If the superintendent does not like the numbers and they're too high, the superintendent will not sign off on it, and they will return it back to the school until they fix their numbers and lower their numbers. Now, sometimes that's not handled in time. And when you look at the state data, you would just have the data for that school or schools redacted or a 0. October 31st, 2018, this article was released from Alex Zimmerman, and he writes in it, for privacy reasons, the Education Department does not disclose data if there's a small amount of suspensions from 1 to 10. Or they could just redact it. So when we see an increase or a decrease, sometimes they don't put in the variables that's supposed to be there to show a big increase. So this year and last year we saw an increase, but if you look at the data set, there's still a lot of schools not reporting because the superintendent didn't sign off on it, or this reason here. Now here's another reason why there's low reporting of numbers. This here is from Urban Assembly. There's a school violence index, which is where it's outlined in red. If you hit a specific number, then your school is flagged. Nobody wants a flagged school. You don't want, it's like business. When a school is flagged as a violent school, students are not going to enroll. People just don't want that. So they do their best to avoid being on this index, including not reporting through the official channels. Okay? There's also policies on the federal level and the state level that affect these numbers, and that's why we see the trend again happening in 2011, going down, sharp decline. Here's the last one. The data in this report raised a question about why there's so many variations. So I was talking about how they hide it. Now let's talk about the variations. The reason why in one school you'll get a suspension, in another school you don't, they use this to their advantage. The citywide behavior expectations. You see, for example, this is a log, official schedule log from the school I was at, where a student jumped on the pole, on the pipes that was on the ceiling, and started swinging right in front of Mr. Pichardo's office. One of the teachers almost got kicked in the face. They reported it. He wanted the kid suspended. Is it a suspendable offense? I don't know. But according to the behavior expectations, a principal could choose any of these actions from D to J. Parent conference, in-house suspension, detention, removable from school grounds, a principal suspension for 1 to 5 days, a superintendent, etc., etc. So you have so many of these interventions that you could choose. 99.9% of the time, they don't want to choose suspension. They try to deal with it in-house so you don't get the numbers counted against you. So this is why we see variations in suspension reports. This is why we see variations in one school. It's being suspended. In another school, they're not being suspended. Look at this trend again. You see this trend? This trend is a very important trend, and it's the key to everything. Okay. How do other large urban school districts compare? So right now, ever since the John Jay report came out, you have senators and people around New York State and New York City that want to use this report against the mayor. They want to use this to remove mayor control over the school. Now I'm about to blow your mind. Okay? I'm about to blow your mind. Remember the trend that I showed you? Look at this. This is Boston. From 2011 to now, they had a sharp decline of 66%. The same decline that happened here in New York City. Again, I don't know how John Jay got my research. I know I shared my information with a lot of people in good high positions. I don't care, because where I'm at in my research, I'm already like surpassed them. I already figured out everything else. So everything that they're doing in their conclusion, I already solved. So we're looking at Boston here. We're looking at California. Let's go to California with Biggie. Look, 40% decline from 2011 to now. Remember that trend I said to look at? There you go. They started out in 2011 with 100,000 students being suspended. Now they have only 60K. Look at Seattle. Seattle, same thing. 50% decline. They went from a total of 5.7, that's the suspension total of enrollment. That's their total. So if they have like 10 students, 5.7 students total suspensions. So if they have 5,700 students, you do the math. 57 students. So a total of their student population, 5.7%, all the way down to 2.8%. That same trend line is there. Look at that. This is just 4 urban areas with the same exact trend line, the same exact dates, the same exact issues. If you look up in Google, they're all having issues with teacher shortage. They're all having issues with suspending students' behaviors, students taking charge in the classroom because of faulty policies that were put into place. Specific policies, which I will not go into this video. That deserves its own video. So no matter what urban area you look at, you will find the same exact trends in the data set. I hope that's an eye-opener. Conclusion. I don't really have a conclusion. You draw your own conclusion. But I would like to say one thing again. You can't use this data that's presented in John Jay to say, look, this is the reason why we need to get rid of mayor control. If it was an isolated incident and the data set only occurred here in New York City, hey, by all means, you'll all be right. Unfortunately, you guys aren't. The people to blame is his advisors. The people to blame are the people who put the policies into check, that put them into play. So if you have any questions, you can always you can always message me on New York City Black Dossier, my website. You can leave a comment on that page. You can find me on Facebook, Chris Lee. If you know how to find my Twitter account, you can find my Twitter account. You can private message me there, or you can shoot me a text. On my other videos, I mentioned my number. Okay, so enjoy, subscribe. I will be producing more videos weekly. I have lots of content to cover, lots of stuff to say, and lots of songs to sing. Have a beautiful night.